You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, everybody? I hope you are doing well. In February, I turned 44 years old, and I'm actually excited to be at this age. I'm excited for the next phase of my life and the experiences that it will bring. The one thing that I am not excited about is menopause. Yeah, I'm not really into it. I feel like menopause is something that is going to happen to other women, and that's not going to happen to me. Even though the calendar says otherwise, right? I'm 44, and my body is also saying otherwise. It's changing. It's obvious. There are things that my body used to do when it was younger that it's just not doing now. Menopause is inevitable. It's coming. And so me avoiding talking about it is not doing anything. And so I think back to when I first got my period, and I didn't have a lot of information about what that meant for me. I knew that it meant I was becoming a woman and that I could now have kids. And that was it. But we all know that having your period has so many more implications to your life than just those two things. And so at 44, when you're going into this next biological part of our life, we should go into it with our eyes wide open. We are older, we are wiser, we are grown, we are growing. And so avoiding the topic is just not what we should be doing. And that's why I am so excited to have our next guest. Sharee McCants is a health professional turned menopause coach. Yes, guys, there are menopause coaches out there. She is the owner and founder of Healthy and Haute, Haute Fitness, where she leads the Hot Flashes fitness program. After years of battling severe depression and low self-esteem due to losing her hair from alopecia, fitness became her saving grace. She discovered how nutrition planning and a consistent workout regimen could have a tremendous impact on her physical and mental health, especially during menopause. Today, she is dedicated to helping women transitioning into menopause become their best selves by developing a healthy and fulfilling lifestyle. This is a conversation that I'm really excited about. I hope you get as much out of it as I did. Let's get into it. Welcome, Sharee, to the Grown and Growing podcast. I am so excited to have this conversation. I'm not excited about going into menopause or am I in it? I don't know. But I am excited to be able to talk about it. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I am excited to be here. I feel very honored to be present with your community and also to have this conversation. I think it is a conversation that every single woman should have. We should feel free in having it, and it should not be taboo in 2022. It just shouldn't be, but it is. And so that's why we're having this conversation, to hopefully make women feel more comfortable, more liberated in talking about it.
Yeah, I think I know 3 things about menopause, and it's like hot flashes, night sweats, 4, weight gain, and no period. So that's all I know. But I did talk to some of my friends. The group chat was on fire today when I told them we were talking, and they had all the questions. So we're going to get into it, but I think we should start simple, right? I think we should start at like the most basic question, which is, what is menopause? Let's start there.
That's good. And you asked the question in the way that kind of how it is. It's a simple thing. So menopause is going 365 days, right, without having a cycle. And so once you reach that 366th day, you are in menopause, and that's it. The day after, you're postmenopausal. And so although the event sounds very simple, I always encourage women to think about it in this way. We all have gone through puberty, right?
Right.
And so you have girls who are in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade going through puberty, and they're all blossoming differently, right? Some girls have boobs in 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
Right.
And some of us don't. We're in college still waiting for them.
Waiting for puberty to kick in.
Waiting to blossom, right?
Right.
Menopause is kind of the same way. So we're ramping up in puberty to be able to create children, right? And so menopause, that journey, is our bodies winding down, which means that at some point we are no longer able to create children because our estrogen level has depleted to a certain point where we're no longer ovulating. So therefore there's no more babies.
It's interesting that you described menopause as the day after you stop having your period, because I always thought it was when you start having night sweats and when you start having hot flashes. I thought that was menopause. So that is technically not menopause. That is something else.
Technically, it is not. So what we fail to be educated on as women is that there are 3 phases to menopause, right? So there is perimenopause, which is what the night sweats, the hot flashes, the insomnia, the menopausal weight gain, as a lot of people refer it to, losing hair or thinning hair, feeling like you're coming undone, like a mental just kind of breakdown, depression. That's perimenopause, most likely. Yes, you can have hot flashes, night sweats after you've reached that 365 point of no longer having a cycle, which is what clinically is menopause. You can continue to have those things happen, but there is a whole phasing into or a journey leading up to that very moment. And that's the part where we're not educated in.
Right. So there's perimenopause, which you just described, which is where you get all the symptoms that everybody's afraid of. Then
Yes.
there's menopause after, like you said, I think you said 1 year after you have a period.
1 year, technically 1 year, and it has to be consecutive.
Okay.
And so when I hear women say, oh, and I've even experienced this, which was like the aha moment for me. I am traditionally one of those women who I am like clockwork. My
Right.
cycle comes religiously.
Right.
I can almost tell you to the hour
Right.
that it's coming. But then I started skipping cycles. I would go 2 months without having a cycle, and then the third month, like, hey, here I am. And it's not even on the date that technically it's supposed to be on. So that's kind of our hormones shifting, right? Shifting gears, going toward that 365 days. But if you skip, let's say some women skip 4 months, right? And then on the 5th month, the cycle comes. Well, then the clock resets.
That sucks.
It does suck. Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does. But it has to be a consecutive 12 months. Okay. If that cycle decides at 8 months, hey, here I am, then you start your clock all over again. You're still in the perimenopausal phase.
Wow. And then there's perimenopause, there is menopause, and then there's postmenopause, which is after you've reached that 365 days, you are forever in postmenopausal state. It just simply means after menopause. Right.
So menopause is a one-time event.
Okay.
But it takes that journey of leading up to it
Right.
to say I'm officially at menopause. So it's a date, right? And
Life.
then
Right.
after that date, you're postmenopausal.
Okay. This seems like, and so I'm trying to wrap my brain around this because I literally
Yeah.
menopause was like a whole thing. But so that is great. That is three. Look, we're here to be educated. So we know
Yes.
what to expect. So when do you start? When do you start? When do women tend to start to be in perimenopause? Like, when does that happen to you?
So let's put our brain back to the puberty concept, right?
Okay.
When you think about when you were going through puberty, you
Mhm.
notice some girls were changing versus other girls were
Right.
changing, right?
Mhm.
So the same concept or the same mindset of perimenopause, every woman is different. So ideally, women begin to venture or go down that path of perimenopause in their mid to late 30s.
Mhm.
However,
Wait,
you
hold
can,
on. You said mid to late 30s.
yes,
Wow.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes. So that simply means that your estrogen at puberty is up here,
Mhm.
right? You're very fertile,
Mhm.
right? And so as time goes on, as we mature and we start getting into our mid 30s,
Mhm.
late 30s, 40s, our estrogen is starting to do this,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Until it's gotten or it's depleted to a certain level where we're no longer ovulating.
Okay.
We're no longer producing enough estrogen to create a cycle to bear children.
Okay. I
So
feel
if you
like
think about it,
I feel like I'm in biology class. I feel like I'm in life sciences. Like,
yes.
let me get my pad out. Perimenopause. Here we go. All right.
Yeah.
So I want to take a step back, a little bit of a detour because you describe yourself as a menopause coach. Um,
Yes.
and so I wanted to know, why did you feel the need to become a menopause coach? What led you to say people need help in this way?
Yes. So as I've been in this health and wellness space for going into close to my 10th year,
Mhm.
um, obviously I started in my sort of early 30s. I wasn't quite 35 yet when I ventured into this space and I fell in love with it. And I was very passionate just simply about learning about the body in general.
Mhm.
So, my clientele, as I became a personal trainer and a nutrition coach, was I wanted to help everyone, men and women, didn't
Mhm.
matter. If you said you wanted to dive into a healthier lifestyle, I was like, okay, let's go. Right.
Good. Mhm.
Um, but then as I started to become more educated and I started to um, kind of be more in front of people, men and women, I started I'm getting older, right? I'm maturing. And so my body was changing. And I noticed that the community of women were starting to have these symptoms and they were excuse my language, working their asses off in the gym,
Mhm.
right? Not seeing results, trying to eat healthy, not seeing results. And so it allowed for me to kind of take a step back and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? It wasn't until my own personal coach, who still coaches me to this day, said, Sharee, what are you going to do when you get into your 40s? And I was like, what? What do you mean? And so he said, well, at some point, your body is going to start changing. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And so we started talking about menopause. And even then, I felt like I'm too young. Like
Right.
menopause is an old lady thing,
Yeah.
right?
Grandma. Mhm.
Yes,
We still PYTs out here.
right. And so we continued to have this conversation, and I was like, wow, I'm not too young
Mm-hmm.
because it's starting now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that the things that I was doing that was working in the gym and the foods that I was eating and even my stress level, I was handling all those things differently,
Mm-hmm.
which meant that, okay, if I'm going to continue down this path of living a healthy life and really focusing on my body, I have to change my thought process
Mm-hmm.
about this because my body is aging. It's at then it was 37, 38 years old. Yeah, you can't continue to do the same things and expecting to get the same result. You
Yeah.
buy a brand new house 20 years from now, it's not a brand new house anymore.
Not. You know what? And I wish I had discovered this about myself at 38 and 39, but instead I'm discovering it at 44 because, my journey, I am noticing changes in my body. No longer can I just, you know, diet for a couple of weeks and get the
Yeah.
pounds off. No longer can I eat what I want and feel the exact same way. Food digests differently. The weight deposits itself in different areas, and it's very stubborn. It's very stubborn, actually.
Yes.
And I just, and I wish I had learned earlier on how to deal with it because now I'm just like, okay, I'm in the thick. While I feel like I'm in the thick of it, I haven't even had a symptom or I haven't had a hot flash yet. Look, but I do get night sweats. Look, at night it is very hot.
Yes.
But I'm in the thick of it, and I wish I had known in my 30s that you should start changing some things about the way you eat and the way you exercise. You can't. I wouldn't have been running all those 5Ks and 10Ks and half
Yeah.
marathons. I would have switched, cardio or done something else. So
Yeah. Yes. And you bring up a very good point about it. You know, it's being strategic about our health, no different than how we are strategic about other things like our education. You're strategic about getting your degree, you're strategic about getting that job that you want, you're strategic about saving money, you're strategic about, vacationing, when and where. But for some reason, we are not strategic about our health. And our health is a continuum.
mhm.
We don't, it shouldn't be looked at as, oh, I need to drop these 10 pounds because my class reunion is coming up and I want to show those,
I'm
what it
guilty,
really is about.
guilty, guilty. That's me.
Or I'm getting married, or,
Yep.
I'm going on vacation and I want to fit into this swimsuit. No, our health is an everyday thing. And it doesn't mean that it has to be this daunting um, task of what I can't have type of mindset, but it should always be at the forefront.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Like I said, it's a continuum. It's not this sporadic, oh, let me pay attention for this particular moment. And then that moment comes and goes, and we're back on, the lack of movement, the careless or carefree, I should say, nutrition. We're doing all the things pouring into everyone's cup, and last and very least is our own.
Right.
No, no.
No, and that's why we need you to be a coach. That's why. The other reason I think it's important for you to have a coach who understands menopause is because, I didn't talk about menopause with my mom. I have no idea.
Right.
All I know is she went through it and had a hysterectomy, and maybe that quickened it, or maybe it didn't. I don't really know. And you're gonna get hot. Okay. There's one
Yeah.
thing very clear about menopause. Somebody's gonna be hot somewhere in an uncomfortable situation, right? I'm
Yes.
hot in the meeting one day. And so I've never talked about it. The closest I've come to having discussions about it is my sister, and I'm sorry to out you on this podcast, but you're older. So she's going through it. And so we talk about her symptoms. And that's the closest. And so it's not a conversation that at least in my circle, or at least that I know of, that generations have talked about and passed on. So
yes, yeah. And that's another very good point, is really developing a community, which I felt inclined to do as I was, educating myself on the subject matter of menopause and how does it all work within our bodies, right? Is having that safe space, that community where you can be vocal and also be vulnerable, because again, every woman is different. So my experience with it is going to be different than the next woman's experience, but I can relate. Just sheer from being a woman, I can relate and give you the support and the education, the tips, the techniques. I don't believe in hacks. So when someone says, well, give me a hack I'm the wrong person to talk to. I'm going to give you a technique that's going to be sustainable, right, that's going to get you through and get you over the hump, and something that you can rely on, that more than not is always going to work, that you can pass along to your daughter, to your sister, to your sister circle, in that way. So I'm a wholehearted believer in developing a community that's going to support you.
Okay. Well, this is a community. I like to say this is a safe space. So yes, let's go there with some of these questions. Everybody that I talked to when I was preparing for this interview or this conversation, everybody had symptoms they want to talk about, a list of symptoms. Okay. That is where it's at. So yes, I do want to circle back to something you said though, just now, is that, as we're talking about symptoms, I think it's important for people to remember, like you said, symptoms are unique to the individual. And so just because I am experiencing something doesn't mean you're going to experience something, right? Yes. So yes, I think people need to, and there's no one size that fits all, unfortunately. We want that, but it's not the case because bodies are individual.
Yeah.
So I read when I was doing research for this, and this would give people an indication of why it's individual, that researchers had found about 34 different types of symptoms related to menopause. 34. Yes. That's a lot. Yes. I don't even know, and they didn't even go into what they all are. So I know that people generally ask, like we talked about a lot, hot flashes, night sweats, weight gain. I've had people ask me about their ask or want to know about their energy levels, about hair thinning. Yes. So let's talk about symptoms. Is there a way that you can tell how your body's going to respond? Like, is there a way to prepare yourself for these symptoms that you're about to embark on? I got a lot of questions, so I'm going to stop there.
Yes. So let me double back real quickly about the laundry list of symptoms. So you are absolutely right. There are so many symptoms that come along with this. And when we were texting back and forth, and even with our initial conversation, I created this list. So I'm just gonna, because I was like, yeah, there are a lot. So anywhere from the ones that we already know of: hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, cold flashes, even, believe it or not, vaginal dryness, incontinence, emotional changes, irritability, mood swings, mild depression, dry skin, dry eyes, vision changing, yes, breast tenderness, which is one that you don't often hear about, but it is one of them. Irregular periods, we know, skipping periods, racing heart rate or heart palpitations, which I have experienced before, and I'll go into that. Headaches, joint and muscle aches is one of them. Sex drive changes, not wanting to have sex, hair thinning, the list goes on.
Oh my God.
And every woman is going to be different, right? And there is no, so to answer your question, is there a way to determine what a woman experiences versus another? The answer is yes and no.
Okay.
So let me unpack that a little bit. I always say pay attention to your numbers. What do I mean by that?
What do you mean?
Paying attention to your weight. I know we hate that. We don't want to look at that number on the scale, right?
Yeah.
But when you understand and break it down to what it really means, it is so helpful. Paying attention to your resting heart rate over time, right? So when you go to your doctor's visits, don't just let them give you those vitals and not ask questions.
Okay.
Okay. Paying attention to your cholesterol levels, right? Those are so pivotal as we are increasing our age, right? Paying attention to your muscle mass, paying attention to your body fat. Those are great indicators because as we know, or as studies show, when our body fat is high, when we are dealing with chronic ailments, more chances are that you're going to have more severe symptoms than not.
So you're saying that if you have not been paying attention to your health, right, and you let some things slip, right,
yes,
there's more body fat, maybe your blood pressure is high, maybe your cholesterol is a little high. These things can make
they can exacerbate
perimenopause worse. It can make symptoms worse. Okay. I think that's important because you don't know that. And I mean, it just adds pressure to you wanting to and needing to be healthy. And so that's interesting.
Yes. So, and women in general, we're under a lot of stress. We manage our homes, we manage our businesses, we have very demanding roles in our employment and our jobs, right? 9 times out of 10, we are the go-to person for our families, right? Our families rely on us to do all the things. The kids are coming to us instead of dad or the significant other, asking us all the things. They could go to someone else or the dad, but they come to us first. And so it's really important for us to reconfigure how people pull on us and rely on us. And it's not to say sidestep the responsibility, but it is to say kind of going, sitting down and reorganizing or restructuring how people are dependent on us, right? So that we can focus on ourselves.
Yes, guys, go back and listen to episode, I don't even know the number, but it's called Give Me a Break, because that is exactly what what I was talking about in that episode, really looking at your life and figuring out what you can cut out of your life so that you can have a more fulfilling life, how to prioritize yourself. Yes. And when you were listing out all of the symptoms, the one thing that jumped out to me that I wasn't really aware of that we could talk about is depression, mood swings. So the mental and emotional aspect of going into menopause. That's something that people probably, I wasn't expecting to hear, but can you talk a little bit more about depression and mood swings? And, obviously it's a hormonal imbalance. Yes. How can people, it's easy to see, how can people identify when that's happening? Because it's easy to see night sweats, it's easy to identify weight gain and hair thinning. Yes. But the mental aspect of it, you may not always see it. Maybe it's the people who are closest to you that see it first, but.
Yeah, more than likely, like you said, it's the people who see it, who who are closer to you that may take notice of that. But this is really just being able to have that space and take inventory on yourself. So again, you have to make room for yourself first, right? And really own up. And this is one of those subjects where we have to call ourselves out on our own BS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And acknowledging that I am overwhelmed and I am stretched too thin, and I don't even have the bandwidth to take a breath,
Mm-hmm.
right? And really focus on myself. If you're a person who is pretty even keel and you notice that you're always on angst, or the littlest things are starting to just send you from 0 to 100,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to take a step back. And a lot of women may say, well, I don't even have time to do that.
Right.
Make the time.
Yeah.
This is the point where you have to kind of say, all right, family, have that family meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and say, look, I'm not feeling well mentally. We talk about mental health, depression is mental health. And going down this journey of, menopause is, in a sense, kind of shifting the expectations and the demands and the things that we are willing to accept versus the things that we are no longer willing to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so having those hard conversations with yourself, with those that are fairly close to you, and even if it's a boss, or a manager or whomever is your higher up in your employment, just saying, listen, I need some time to focus on my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it starts off with 5-minute journaling, you can do a lot in 5 minutes. Okay. So even if it's saying, I've been working really hard, we've all living through a pandemic that we thought was gonna be short-lived, and here we are 2 years plus into it. That has taken a toll. Raising kids takes a toll. Being in a relationship, whether you're married or you have a significant other, whatever your situation is, that takes a toll.
Yeah, whether it's good or bad.
We love our people.
It doesn't have to be a stressful, volatile, toxic situation to be stressful. Exactly. It can be good and still be stressed and still add stress.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So you need to take space, take that time to just kind of decompress. Think about it. When was the last time you've had 5 minutes to just decompress, meaning do nothing for no one other than yourself? When was the last time that you had that?
Right. And you deserve more than 5 minutes, but I guess that's a good place to start.
It's a great, absolutely. You definitely deserve more than 5 minutes, but sometimes it's creating that habit first. Mm-hmm. So let's get it on the calendar. Block out 5 minutes just for yourself to close your eyes and just breathe. Listen to your heartbeat. Mm-hmm. When was the last time you've taken time to just listen to your heartbeat and give yourself grace and thanking your body to say, thank you for this heartbeat. Let me listen to it.
I haven't done that ever. And I probably need to do that.
So I'm giving out homework.
Let's talk about
the next week. Schedule yourself a block, 5 minutes, and say, listen to your heartbeat. That's your homework. And just see how good it feels to do that. But we have to start prioritizing ourselves for our mental health.
So when we talk about symptoms, people had a lot of questions about how to manage the hot, like that is my worst nightmare, being in a meeting. I'm in a lot of meetings all day now. Thankfully, they're mostly virtual now, but I used to have a lot of in-person meetings, and my nightmare, it used to be when I was pregnant, my nightmare was, oh my God, is my water going to break in this meeting? That was my fear when I was pregnant. Now it's like, am I going to get, having a hot flash that I don't even know what it feels like, but I've seen people have them and it looks very uncomfortable. So how can people control, how can you manage those? How can you manage being hot at night? I don't know. Is there anything you can do for that?
So unless you've had one, there really are no words to
don't even have the
explain
words.
it.
I'm like, it's hot. You're getting hot. But apparently it's like being in hell.
I have never had a hot flash before. However, I have had night sweats before.
Mhm.
And I'm a person that I am cold natured. I am always like, the more blankets, the merrier for me.
Mhm.
And all I can remember is being in bed at ridiculous o'clock and waking up and feeling like there was this person inside of me lighting a campfire.
I felt those. I just wake up and my neck is hot. Why is it
Yes,
my neck on fire? I sleep with a sleep mask. Mask is wet, sweat, face is sweaty, and I just
yes,
throw the covers off of me. I've experienced those. Yes.
yes. And I woke up like, what is going on here and why? And so I got up, went to the restroom, put some cold water on my face, got a washcloth, wet it with cold water, and just kind of patted the hot areas. um, so it's for this is what I've learned. And again, everything isn't going to work for everyone.
For sure. Yeah.
But what I have learned is that creating a night routine
Okay.
for myself, meaning I kind of decompress from the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't used to be a journaler. I've grown into being that, where going back to that 5-minute rule, for me, it's about a good 10-15 minutes where I just kind of give myself the opportunity to reflect throughout my day. The things that are troubling me go in that journal as a way for me to be able to let go of it so that I'm not going to bed with it in my head and on my heart.
Right.
Right. I do a stretching routine just to kind of, and it's nothing major because you don't want your heart rate to elevate. You want to try and keep it as low as possible. But I do a stretching routine that kind of allows for me to de-stress from the day. And I'm very intentional about what I'm speaking to myself. So speaking out loud, I want to have a good night's sleep. I want to be restful. I want to get a good 7 to 8 hours sleep. Creating a bedtime for myself where everything is kind of going down, meaning the noise level in my home is going down, the TV is going down. I check off the social media. I put my phone away. um, Distractions, eliminating the distractions, eliminating things that are going to elevate my stress level. Getting on social media can be stressful. You see things, hear things that you don't think about, that are going to impact your subconscious, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a person who I like to fall asleep with the TV on. So that's one habit that I haven't been able to break. However, I do set a timer so that my TV goes off.
Right.
And my TV time is a half hour. So I lay down, set that timer, TV goes off, and it is not to come back on.
Mm-hmm.
If I find that I'm having trouble falling asleep or getting to sleep, then I'll journal, or I'll listen to like some soothing music. You can find all kinds of sleep apps that just kind of play background noise that's going to continue to soothe you, just like a baby.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that normally helps. Paying attention to the foods that you're eating before bedtime.
Okay. Do you eat after a certain time? So does that include like stop eating after 7 or 8 or whatever?
So yes and no. I'm not as strict with, oh, I'm absolutely not going to have anything after 8 o'clock, although that may help for some. Mm-hmm. So think about your digestive system.
Right.
It's active, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so activity means that it's increasing warmth, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to allow for your food to kind of digest before you lay down.
Right.
Okay. So if that means that if your bedtime is at 10 you want to give yourself a block of time where you've eaten food and the digestive process it has kind of started before you've laid down.
Okay. So is that like an
But
hour or like 2 hours or?
I would say a good 45 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
But if you also think of the mindset of eating and laying down and not giving yourself activity to burn some of those calories.
Right.
So if you're eating and then immediately going to bed, then you're not burning off those calories, and eventually you create that habit of doing that, then that means that you're just storing
And
extra
that puts you
calories.
in your stomach and your, horizontal. I mean, I know for my husband, I don't have heartburn, but he does. And I know
Yeah.
that eating close to him going to bed gives heartburn. So what foods should you avoid before you talked about avoiding certain foods?
So spicy foods,
Okay.
because they're going to warm you up.
No spicy
You
food.
know?
Okay.
It's kind of like, all right. And you think about hot flashes in general as well. So spicy foods is going to generate heat,
Right.
which hot flashes is generating heat. So you want to just be mindful of that. If spicy foods are your thing, you got to decide, is it worth having the spicy
Worth it?
wings,
Right.
If you say yes, then maybe creating an activity that will get you outdoors, or where you're getting some fresh air, and maybe the hot flashes aren't that challenging for you. Mm-hmm. So here's where you gotta have that real talk with yourself, like, is it worth it? Caffeine at night, probably not the best thing for you.
Okay.
Sometimes exercising at night, although this isn't a food, but your heart rate is elevated when you exercise. So trying to find that happy medium of, when do you exercise? Is it better for you to exercise in the morning versus at night?
Yeah. That's so real, because my husband will tell you, that's why I like working out early in the morning, because it does give you energy. And yes, I will bounce off the walls after a workout. Like, the energy level is so high. And I used to work out at night at 6:30, and it would just make me pumped. Like I had caffeine for a few hours after the workout. So I had to stop that.
Yes.
So what about, okay, let's talk about, that's so much to talk about. Let's talk about nutrition and exercise, because I think what people want to hear, and I know that's not possible, is take 2 pieces of ginger, rub it on some onion, take it twice a day, and that'll help your hot flashes. But are there supplements? Are there, what should we be doing with our nutrition? What should we be doing with supplements that will help ease us through this perimenopause kind of phase?
Yes. So I'll go back to this. I don't believe in hacks. Okay. So I'm not the girl for that. I believe in techniques that are going to be sustainable. And with that said, when we think about our diets, let's be real and let's be honest with ourselves. Do a journal for a day or two and don't change anything, and just look at the things that you're eating. Mm-hmm. And are they processed or are they not? Let's start there. And how often, if it's a bag of chips every once in a while, who doesn't love a good bag of chips, right?
I mean, I do.
But if you realize that you're eating a bag of chips every single day,
problem,
and you're having hot flashes, and you're seeing that, you're having the menopausal belly, let's just say, and you're having the night sweats and all the things, then let's change the behavior. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I like to say, take baby steps. Going back to the 5-minute rule, start reducing one thing. Okay. So if you're a caffeine person and you're having pop every day, let's try and reduce pop.
Soda is pop, guys. If you're
I'm sorry.
They not call it pop. Oh, it's nice to hear you say pop. They don't say that down here in Baltimore. So if you love
You
your
know,
soda or pop,
yes,
what you say?
yeah. Or look at your lunch plate, or your breakfast meal, or your dinner meal, and see what variety of colors. As everything is brown, then let's try and incorporate some color. Okay.
Sorry, I don't know why that's funny. If everything is fried chicken,
Yeah,
fried
yeah, fried chicken, a hamburger, French fries, you know, everything is brown. Then let's again change the behavior. Let's incorporate small steps. Add a bell pepper, add a carrot, add some soybeans, try some beets. If the last time you even thought about having a beet was when you were 12 years old and your grandma or your mom was saying you have to eat these beets, then let's try it again, because your palate has changed. And
yeah.
now you understand how your food is going to be so much more beneficial to you than simply saying, oh, I don't like beets. Come on
Yeah.
now, let's be adults.
Yeah. And I think this is going to sound harsh, but I think we're past I think it's pretty well known that your diet is a major influence on how you feel and how you look. And
Yes.
I'm not saying it's easy to change. I'm just saying we know. And by when you're in your 40s, you know that, you may not know all of the intricacies of nutrition and how much protein and how many vegetables and how many cups, but you do kind of know that eating McDonald's every day and eating fried chicken and soul food and heavy foods like that, you do know it's not ideal for you. I think the problem comes in is, how do you break the habit? How do you break the habit? And I think I like what you said about taking baby steps, because we're trying to separate from that mindset of when we were in our 20s and 30s and we can eat, we can drink what was that spicy lemonade tea that Beyonce used to drink, whatever. We're out of
Yeah.
that phase. We're out of
Yes.
eating, cabbage soup for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
trying to really focus on how nutrition and proper nutrition can be a sustainable part of your life.
Yes. And that's the key word, is sustainable, because all that other stuff is not sustainable.
Yes. And I had to have that conversation with myself. I had to come to that realization. It's like, stop, girl.
Yeah.
Just eat healthy most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Be more conscious of what you're eating. I am a unconscious eater. I am a snacker. Oh, I love snacks. I mean, I do love healthy foods. I can
So
eat
do
all
I.
the want, but I also like cakes and cookies and stuff. And so it was just having a come to Jesus moment with myself, that it was like, it's time for you to try to get this under control, as you have done in other areas of your life. I like that you said you have a strategy for other parts of your life, but nutrition and being healthy, you don't have a strategy for that.
Yeah.
So I like that you said that.
Yes.
And there's no way around eating well. And
No.
what about exercises? So I've heard that you should not, like, once you get into your perimenopause phase, or maybe when you're after 40, I don't know if it's perimenopause or it's a certain age, that you should focus more on weightlifting than cardio, right? Like, is that true? Should you, focus on, like, how should your exercise evolve when you're perimenopausal?
So they both are equally important.
Okay.
I think we get lost in what we see on social media and magazines and all the things. So when you think of strength training, just think muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And muscle is what protects us from hurting ourselves.
Right.
And if we are not consistently and actively exercising to sustain muscle, right, then we're putting ourselves at jeopardy for injury.
Right. And I do know, just working in healthcare, so I work very close to healthcare, not a doctor, but I work with a lot of them, is, when you become a certain age, you start to lose muscle mass.
Yes.
And so you need to be able, and bone mass, and lifting weights helps in that regard for you to kind of sustain or keep or build muscle while your body is actively, losing it as a part of aging.
Yes, absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree with that. And the other half of that is the cardio. So cardio is our heart health. This is, we're in February. This is Heart Health Awareness Month for women. And because our estrogen levels are decreasing, it's so important for us to pay attention to our heart. Heart attacks are the number one killer for women. And so as we go into this perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal journey, it's so important for us to pay attention to that. So going back to the beginning, when I said, understanding your numbers and paying attention to your resting heart rate, that's where the cardio element is. So it doesn't mean that we have to do copious amounts of hours of cardio, but we should be paying attention to decreasing our stress so that our resting heart rate goes down.
How should we incorporate different doctors into, like, should you, I know if people are like me, you spent the majority of your adult years relying on your GYN. Your GYN is your everything. She's your primary care. If something goes, like, women, a lot of women I know, they don't have a primary care, but they've had their GYN forever. And so, it comes at a GYN, they can't treat everything, right? They can't. And so how important is it to have the right clinical expert kind of on your team as you are embarking on this journey, and what kind of doctors should you be looking?
So, here's what I'll say. No one is going to care more about your health for you than you. And so you have to take your health in your own hands. And this is one of those things, like, I don't really rely on my physician, which I have a physician that I go to once a year, because I want to make sure, that I am staying in alignment with what I understand my body to be healthy.
Okay. And is it a primary care doctor?
It's a primary care.
Okay. And do you have like a panel of tests done, or what do you have done when you go there once a year?
I do. So I get, blood work done to make sure that my lipids and, all the things are in alignment and nothing is getting out of whack. I make sure that, I get a breast exam done to make sure that there's nothing going on there, because unfortunately cancer does run in my family. My mom passed away from breast cancer, and that was her second bout with it. So I'm very aware of what I'm susceptible to. However, I have a complete understanding that my lifestyle since I was in my 20s has been extremely different than my mom's health, my grandmother's health, my great-grandmother's health.
And people so right now on the podcast, but she's beautiful, guys. You'll see it one day when I release the video of this podcast. She looks great.
Thank you. Thank you. So I understand that the chronic ailments that my family has been exposed to, I'm very confident that I'm not in that realm, right? So I'm very strategic in my activity level. I'm very strategic in my nutrition. I'm as strategic as possible with decreasing my stress level and pouring into myself before I pour into others. And women that hear this or watch this may, initially think, well, how does she do that? And, oh, she doesn't have the responsibilities. I don't accept a lot of responsibilities on purpose.
Right. That's
On
for a reason.
purpose.
Yes. I have some friends who should be listening to this. I hope they are. Go ahead. No,
I'm very quick, not necessarily to say no, but to allow for people to figure out stuff on their own.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it's an emergency, my phone may ring back to back several times. And then it's like, okay, do I open the door for this?
Yeah.
Or do I allow for them to, figure it out on their own? And that's just a hard stance that we have to figure out in it all. But going back to, your doctors, one, you have to be very vocal.
Yes. Yes.
You have to show up for yourself, and you have to be the voice for that doctor to say, hey,
advocate for yourself.
Yes, you have to advocate for yourself. And if you're not getting the answers that you think, or not that you think, that you feel comfortable with,
right,
then it's time for you to start inquiring on a different doctor. Which is why community is so important at this particular age and journey.
It's so hard I understand the importance of having doctors in your life, but it doesn't mean that they're always right. It doesn't mean that you ignore, ignore what you feel and what you think and prioritize what they say. So I say have a doctor. I think that's important, right? Because if something's ailing you, you need to go figure it out. But you also need to be aware that you need to advocate for yourself, especially if you're Black, because we all know the stigmas that medical professionals, if you don't know, medical professionals, have stigmas and about, caring for Black people. They don't feel pain in the same way. We have thicker skin than white people. All of these things that are false, and they're doctors and they still believe it. And so there is advocating for yourself, right? And then there's also, medication being pushed on you. And it doesn't matter how, and there are doctors out there who won't push medications. You can get a functional doctor or whatever, or a DO. But you have to be cognizant, and you have to really be in tune with yourself to say, do I have to take this medication? And then everything goes back to lifestyle, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Lifestyle. Yeah.
It certainly does. And to your point, when it comes to different ethnicities, women of color, Latino women, it is proven that our symptoms, because of our lifestyles and disparities in the communities in which we live, our symptoms are going to be greater than white women, Asian women. It's proven, and it's up to us to really be advocates for ourselves, to be willing to change our behaviors and how we are active, how we feed ourselves, and that those kinds of things. Otherwise, we're always going to be at this crossroad of someone on the other side telling us that we have no other choice. We have no other choice but to take this medication. We have no other choice but to get this surgery, because they feel like we're not going to do anything else. And that's just the easier route for us.
Right. Okay. So guys, no quick tips, no taking a ginger shot. I mean, you can do those things because it's healthy. It's,
Yes.
probably want to talk to someone about, what supplements you can take, because it's really dependent on your body and what, so there's no blanket take, you know, all the vitamin C, all the,
Yeah.
herbs
Yeah.
and all that. But
And
unless there is
supplements,
something you
they
want to
do.
say, unless there is, I don't know. Is there? Is there something I can say?
Supplements do have their place in the grand scheme of things. I will say that. But the reality is they're supplements. It's not the end all be all. We have to do the work. Like literally, we have to do the work. We have to be willing to change our lifestyles. We have to be willing to yeah, I'll leave it at that. We have to be willing to change our lifestyles and change the way that we think about things. That was the other thing. I kind of had like a brain freeze there, or a brain fart. We have to be willing to change our lifestyles, and we have to be willing to change the way that we look at things. And it doesn't mean that we remove all the things that we enjoy, right? We still get to do those things. It's just, how frequently are we doing the thing that is not really beneficial to us versus the thing that is. Okay. So it's like, how often do you get in a car without your seatbelt on?
Right. Never. But oh my God, I feel like we're gonna have to have a part 2 because there's so many. There's so many things that I didn't cover, but I am going back to this one because it's important to me.
Okay.
It is sex. Let's talk about sex, please.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Yeah. Let's talk about it, because I've had conversations, and I feel like people either think 2 ways about it when you're in menopause. Either the sex is going to be a little dry, or it is in overdrive. And I was telling my friend, I was like, wouldn't it be awful if it was both dry and you were in overdrive? It's be very unfair. But the way we've been talking about menopause, it's already all unfair to me anyway. But let's talk about sex. So how should people, when people are thinking about menopause, how should they expect their sex life to change? Or should they expect it to change?
So I would like to side on the positive, that because you don't know. Again, it goes back to every woman is different. Every woman's experience is going to be different. And so you think about it, on one side, if you're hot as hell, you're not sleeping at night, you're stressed as F, then the chances are you wanting someone to touch you is slim to none, right?
Right. Dry or not. No, don't touch me.
Right. But on the other side of that, kudos to the women who find this, second wind of liberation of sex, and their sex life is very healthy. The happy medium of that is no different than menopause being taboo. Women talking about sex is taboo. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important to, one, be comfortable with where you are in your sexual desire, but also being vocal about it with your partner, and having that level of vulnerability to say, hey, partner, this is what I'm going through. I've noticed that I feel differently when we have our sexual engagement, and maybe that conversation will allow for you space on trying new things, whatever those new things are. Whether it's, introducing a little bit more of foreplay before, you get down to the get down. I don't know. Maybe it takes you a little bit longer to warm up to your partner, but without the conversation, how do you expect your partner to receive you well?
Right.
And knowing that you're changing, and setting the tone that it's not them, but it's not you. It's just a part of life.
Right.
And here we are in the moment of I am changing and my body is changing. And so therefore I need something a little bit different. So let's try this,
I like
or
the idea of trying new things and, not getting stuck on sex just being intercourse and that's it. So,
yes,
maybe you want to introduce a little something else.
yes,
Can't be that way. Or
lubrications, toys, whatever your relationship is going to flourish into, but not being so down on yourself
Mhm.
that your mindset, again, this goes back to the mindset of just being open enough to one, acknowledge that something is changing and having that conversation. I mean, we're in our 40s, our 50s, 60s. We should be able to have a conversation about sex and about our bodies,
Right.
especially with the person that we're being intimate with, you know. And even if it's one of those a situation where you're not really quite sure what it is that you need, but you just know that something is different. And so it's, have a date night of just sitting on the couch with a candle and having that conversation about something is changing,
Mhm.
and letting it go, and letting things kind of blossom from there. But to just suffer in silence and feel compelled or obligated to have sex without having a conversation about the changes, or retreating from having sex because it's uncomfortable, it shouldn't be an option. Like, no, we're not
I
doing
think
that.
that you um are so positive about it, but because there are options, and the key, from what I'm hearing from you, is to not give up. Don't give
No.
up. Continue to try. It's going to be different, as you have in all other aspects of your life getting up to this point. When something
Yes.
wasn't working, you adjusted and you tried something different. And
Yes.
it's no different when it comes to sex. So, I can't promise you that it won't, get dry. I can't promise you that you won't, that you're going to be rearing and ready to go, 5 times a week or 5 times a day. But
Mhm.
whatever happens in your life, wherever you fall on that spectrum, adjust your life so that it works for you, right? And so I think, that is what I am taking away from this conversation, is that don't give up, continue to work on it until you get the desired result that you want.
Yes, yes. It's all about open communication. Um, and I think once we understand what is going on, like that's half the battle. It's just understanding that, one, it's normal,
Mhm.
and you're not broken.
Right.
And there's nothing to be fearful of or to feel hopeless about. There's a lot of sex to be had, like
Lots of sex to be had, guys. Honey.
lots of sex to be had, and
Lots of
we should
stay
enjoy it. And because listen, as we know now, if we didn't know before, our reproductive abilities are kind of declining.
Mhm.
So we're not having sex to have children, we're having sex to have fun.
Finally. Whew. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think that's great. So we have been like, I can continue to talk for another hour because there's so much, but why don't you leave us? I think when we entered this conversation, it was with trepidation and uncertainty. Can you leave us in a positive place? What is something positive that we have to look forward to when it comes to menopause?
So obviously the number one, and I say this jokingly but not, is that we at some point in the near future, we will no longer have a cycle, because I'm sure we all hate having a cycle.
Yeah.
Um, But in the process leading up to that, it's really important just to take it day by day. Okay. Um, I know this was supposed to be on a positive note, but I have to say this because I think women get so caught up in the getting to the finish line of menopause, not realizing that on average, you a woman can be in the perimenopausal state for an average of 7 years.
Okay.
So let's all collectively take a deep breath and take it one day at a time. And this is our opportunity to really reconnect with ourselves
Right.
and really set the tone for what the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to look like for us.
Yes, guys, what is your post
Like,
period
what is your
years?
desire? Yeah, I like to say, the tap into that kind of little girl aspect of, the big dreams of when I grow up, this is what I want to be. You get to ask yourself that again. When I grow up into this next phase of my life, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to be? You will get to define that. And
Yeah.
now you are experienced enough in life to understand what you like and what you don't like. Like, it's a hard concrete what you don't like and what you like now. And really living into that. What is it that I really love? If it's a career that you've grown into and now you realize I don't want to be here anymore, okay, let's figure out how to get you out of that career and get you into that new thing that you found passion about. The
Right.
kids are leaving, hopefully.
Right.
So now you have time to really focus on you and to shift into that new, I don't want to say new version, but more refined
Yes.
version of you.
What I was going to say was not very refined, but that's a very nice way of saying it. I like to say we are preparing for our zero fucks life. Like,
Yes.
give zero, I'll say F's, zero F's about anything. And you're so confident and you're so sure about what you want in life and going after it. So
Yeah. Yes.
thank you, Sharee. Oh my God, this was such a good conversation. I hope that, women get so much out of it. I feel like a part 2 is coming somewhere, but thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And for everybody else, I will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.